Okay, Karen, she's fired. Happy now, by user Mac_Oxonfire. I've just come back from a quick trip to the States, via 2 days in Germany, business, don't ask. So, of course, being British, and having read so much about people's experiences in places like the Wall of Mart's Wheel, I had to see one for myself. I'll admit, I went to a load of other places, and I can't remember what uniforms people wore, so details are sparse in that respect. This story starts with me walking through the Ward Mall, at once impressed with the range and the prices, and faintly horrified by some of the food. As I'm walking through, I hear the dreaded harumphing of an approaching needy wild Karen. She wasn't looking at me, but at a teenaged girl. Now the girl was wearing jeans, jacket, handbag, and absolutely no uniform. This Karen starts whipping up a storm of demands and threats, and the poor girl looked like she was about to cry. Something had to be done. I decided that I'd intervene, but before I'd taken 2 steps, a genuine, bona fide suit-wearing legend arrived, and. Alright, I didn't know he was a legend immediately, so I am getting ahead of myself. Legend, booming over Karen's squawking diatribe. What seems to be the problem? Karen was taken aback by his voice, but soon regained hers, and started complaining about everything the girl hadn't done, and how she should be fired, blah blah blah. The guy turns to the girl and says, "Right, I'm officially promoting you to customer. You're fired. Enjoy your shopping experience." The girl had clearly figured out what he was doing, and couldn't stop grinning. The legend turns back to Karen and says, as the title suggests, she's fired. Happy now? Karen saw the girl still smiling and decided she was even less happy, nearly shouting, "But I want her to get something or other, and." The legend stops her in her tracks, and says, "That's a customer you're harassing. If you continue to harass her, or any other customer in this store, I'll have those large men from security haul you out the shop." Karen harumphed again, albeit more quietly, stuck her nose up in the air, and stalked off. As she got to the end of the aisle, the teenager just burst out laughing, and it was such an infectious laugh, the legend joined in. Brilliant. Customer tried paying with fake money, expected me to serve him, by user Ka1425. Hi, I'm 17F and I work at Michael's the craft store. This happened the other week. I was on my lunch break shopping as a normal customer, no uniform or identification that says I work there, and this man comes running up to me asking me if I work here. I told him yes, but technically not right now since I'm on my lunch and not being paid. He proceeds to ignore my entire sentence, and grabbed me by the arm. This man was probably his early 30s, and as I stated before, I am 17 and a very small female. As he drags me to the register, he's saying, "Your cashier needs help," and I've been waiting for my change for 5 minutes now. I ask him to please remove his hand from me before I drop the candles I was holding, and to his benefit he did. We make it up to the front and there is a long line with one cashier working. I proceed to just page on the POS system for backup, and go back to my lunch break. Next thing I know, the man's friend is coming up to me and also grabs me by the arm to drag me to the registers. I exclaim, "What is with you and your friend and your need to put your hands on me? Now please remove them before I get someone to escort you out." My manager then approached me and asked if I could hop on register for just a couple minutes and I'll get an extra 5 for my lunch. Annoyed, I do what she asks and hop on register and start ringing up the guy who grabbed me. He had a $3,000 basket of sewing lights and Visa gift cards and pulled out a wad of cash. So I took the cash from him and it definitely didn't feel right, so I put them through our bill readers and marked them with the counterfeit marker, and both showed up as fake bills. I proceeded to hand back all the money he gave me and told him that he needs to leave the store and that he's not welcome back, and I will be informing my manager and they will decide whether a police report needs to be filed. The guy fast walks out the door and I'll tell my manager everything and tell them I'll be needing 15 minutes more lunch time since the guy took up 18 minutes of my time and wasted them. I didn't get the extra lunch time. Side note, I know that this is for people who don't work at the store the confrontation happened in, but technically on unpaid time I do not work there and shouldn't be obligated to help. Lost in IKEA, I guess I am your guide, by user EvilDevil4. Well, it's been a while Reddit, but I actually find myself with spare time, so here is something recent. I had been going to my local IKEA to pick up bookcases, bedside tables, and whatever else I needed for my new apartment. It's about half an hour away, so I have been going after work, still dressed up in work clothes. My job is an office situation, and I wear a shirt and tie. So I guess I can't blame the confused-looking old-timer who accosted me in the "Is" section. "Old-timer, do you work here?" "Me? Nah, I just dress up," We share a laugh and he looks disappointed and lost. I guess years of retail work have me broken in, because I then continued. Me, I can try to help if you like, what's up? The old man looks thankful as he pleads. Old timer, how the heck do you get out of here? I'm not sure why, but in my absurd mind I like to imagine that old timer might have been a young man when he first entered the store, and that he had been subsisting on meatballs and sleeping on display sofas as he wandered endlessly. He was so close to the exit, of course I had to help him escape this Swedish purgatory. Me, oh yeah, I can help. Follow me. I politely walked him to the exit. He thanked me and was on his way, into a world much different than the one he knew when he first ventured into IKEA. Sadly they did not have the Billy bookcase I wanted. So I got the Kallax ones. But at least I did a good deed and used my weird middle management vibes for good, and not for evil. If you are out there old timer, I wish you well, not as an employee, but just as a helpful human. Karen gets more than she bargained for, by user justme23222. To start off, let me say that this takes place in a not small, not large town in a southern state in the US, this will be important later. A friend of mine has kept bugging me to post this, so I broke down and finally did. I have to apologize for the length, but I can't think of any other way to tell the story. So, I had been out doing some things for work and was heading home when I realized that I didn't have any wine and was having people over for dinner that evening. I decided to stop off at a liquor store, as I decided to not only buy a few bottles of wine, but a nice bottle of whiskey as well, as I was running low, and where I lived, you could buy wine and beer in a supermarket, but hard liquor could only be purchased at a liquor store. As it was a place I went to frequently, I knew most of the people who worked there, so I chatted for a moment with the Tom, behind the counter, as there were no other customers at the time. After our conversation, I went over to where the wine was and started looking to see what was available and what I would like for the evening. I guess I had been searching around for about 20 minutes or so, pulling bottles off the shelf, reading the labels and putting them back, and was so engrossed in what I was doing that I hadn't noticed that there was someone else that had come in. Tom had yelled to me, a few minutes earlier, that he was going to run in the back and pull some boxes to restock the shelves, and he knew I could spend hours looking at wines, just to pick the right ones, that if anyone came in to give him a shout. As I was kneeling at one of the shelves, I felt a presence behind me and heard a not-so-subtle clearing of a throat. My first thought was that someone wanted to get into where I was, and being so oblivious to my surroundings, I hadn't noticed them there. Not looking up, I said, sorry, and moved slightly to one side, continuing to take bottles, read the label and put them back. Then, I heard the second, much louder ahem. Now, let me explain that the store had no real dress code for their employees, except that they needed to look neat. I that day was wearing a black suit with a black shirt. No, I'm not a member of the family and my name doesn't end in a vowel. LOL, but this will be important later, not something you would see an employee wearing here. This was then followed by Karen, yes, what else would I call her, speaking. Karen, I swear, I have nothing but problems with you people who work here. You never want to help. Now, I do have to say, I have never had a problem with ever getting help here, so I start to tell her, Tom is in the back, let me call him too. To which she interrupts, no, you are right here, you can help me, or are you too lazy? I start to say sorry ma'am, but I don't work here, and stand up and got only half of it out when I guess she saw my white collar. Yes, I am a priest, and while I usually wear normal clothes if I would stop at this store, I had been coming back from a hospital visit at the time and all the employees knew who I was, but you know, appearances. Anyway, she took one look, stepped back, dropped the bottle she was holding and started stammering. I guess that seeing a preacher buying liquor, it's down south, more Baptists than Catholics, so anyone in black is a preacher. She lost her ability to reason. BTW, some of the biggest drunks I know are preachers, and started screaming like a banshee. I couldn't comprehend much of what she was saying, but did catch a how dare you or a going to hell here and there. I tried to calm her down, with no such luck, and Tom must have heard the commotion and sprinted out of the back, about the time bottles started flying, as well as a purse and some flailing arms. Rather than come over to where we were, it seems that he went over to the counter and dialed 9-1-1, and a few moments later came over to us and tried to get between her and I, but Karen wasn't having it. While I had done a pretty good job of avoiding or deflecting the projectiles, arms, and purse, Tom wasn't so lucky and was hit square in the forehead with a bottle, sending him flying into an entire rack of wine. Fortunately, as this happened, the police had arrived and seeing the wild banshee making another run at me, subdued her, taking her to the floor and restraining her. The officer that had arrived, sensing he would need a bit of assistance, called for another officer, and held her down until help arrive. He also called for an ambulance for Tom, seeing he was dazed, and the blood running out of his head in a few places she had caught me. Every time he tried to ask what had happened, she would start her ranting again and no one could get a word in, or understand anything she was saying. Help arrived about 5 minutes later and they dragged, yes, they had top drag her as she wouldn't move, except to kick and spit at the officers. The paramedics, who I knew from visits to the hospital, arrived a few minutes later and treated Tom and myself, though I kept telling them that Tom was worse off than I. Tom ended up going to the hospital to get checked out and get a few stitches, so the officers took his statement there and I gave them mine at the scene. I found out later that she was the wife of some big shot lawyer, aren't they always, and he ended up getting her off on community service and no one was ever able to find out why in the world she went off like that. I guess the realization that clergy are actually human beings just did her in. Everybody else ended up being just fine and Tom never stopped telling the story as long as I lived down there. This is my only I don't work here, lady experience, though sure as heck not nearly my only Karen story, those will have to be for another time, and thank God. Again, I am sorry for the length of this, but I hope you enjoyed it. Oh, I thought you were the supervisor, by user surprise Acabus. So last night, I work at a popular store with lots of unique items. I was rolling out about 4 cases of something for a fully empty shelf. As I am getting into the task, I hear one old man, M1, greet another old man, M2, who has been wandering around the snack aisle but has nothing in his hands, no basket etc. My coworker and I had been dodging M2 for at least 10 minutes while trying to stock the section. So I hear behind me the following conversation. M1, oh hello. M2, hi. At this, I figure they know each other and that it is a normal convo. M1, I can't find the chips I like, it looks like they are out, I can't remember the brand name. M2. I turn a bit to see what is happening in this silence. M1 is gesturing to the empty shelves we are working on restocking, M2 looks deeply confused. M1, do you? M2? I have turned away at this point so they won't be able to see that I am struggling not to burst out laughing. M1, oh. I thought I heard you talking, it sounded like you were instructing sorry. So at this point, I am ready and expecting to receive the question next, as I am wearing multiple pieces of company issued and brand emblazoned clothing. Nope. M1 walks past me, walks past my coworker who is knelt down actively stocking the shelves, she is also labeled front and back as a store employee, and heads directly out of the store. I was finally free to burst into laughter. Before anyone asks why I didn't jump in with an offer of help, it is because I am a good NPC and I only interact if directly addressed. This is what 2 decades of retail work will do to you.